today. As I look at the clock, it says 12:01, so we'll get started with introductions and then move forward with this presentation. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Jen Abraham. My pronouns are she, hers, and I am one of the associate directors at the Center for Career and Professional Development. And I specifically work with our College of Business students and our student athletes here at Lehigh. My colleague Autumn, unfortunately, was not able to make it today, so it's just going to be me in this presentation, but I'm very excited to be with you all and really talking through this topic of addressing the gender pay gap through negotiation. This presentation was developed in partnership with colleagues across campus, particularly the Center for Gender Equity. And we really worked hard to ensure that this information was also data-driven. So in the chat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you all 2 additional resources from our office. One of them is a YouTube video of our full gender pay gap presentation. And another one's a recent Brown and White podcast episode featuring 2 of our staff members speaking about the gender pay gap. So I'm going to throw those in the chat here, so that way you have those resources. Awesome. We have a lot that we're going to be talking about today, so we invite you to engage in conversation, whether you'd like to use the Q&A feature here, or what you can also do too is you can send any questions that you have into the Lehigh Connects Women's Professional Alliance group, and I'm going to send that link as well to you all. Oh, thank you, Morgan, for doing so. So you can send any questions to the Professional Alliance group. With that being said, before we move to the next slide, this presentation presents research that uses the term for gender binary and heteronormative families. However, we do recognize and appreciate that there are more genders than just women and men, and that families and parents are just not mothers and fathers. So, overview of our presentation, we're going to talk about the gender pay gap and racial pay gap. We're then going to move into career choice arguments and why women don't ask. We're going to talk about some lost earnings, salary negotiations, new jobs, raises, and promotions all can be applied. And then last but not least, talk about supporting others in this process. So what is the gender pay gap? The gender pay gap is the disparity of earned income between women and men. And throughout this presentation, we'll be talking about the uncontrolled gender pay gap and the controlled gender pay gap. So as you see in this presentation, the uncontrolled pay gap compares all working women to all working men. And as you can see in the chart, all working men to the dollar versus all working women is 79 cents to the men's dollar. The controlled gender pay gap then compares similarly qualified and experienced women and men in similar jobs. So you can see that gap is closed, but the gap is still present. According to PayScale's article, The State of Gender Pay in 2021, data shows that the start of their careers, men and women tend to work at similar level jobs, most often entering the workforce at the individual contributor level. Over the course of their career, men move into higher level roles at a significantly higher rates than women. By mid-career, which is an age range between 30 and 44, men are 70% more likely to be in a VP or C-suite role than women. By late career, and that's ages 45 plus, men are 142% more likely to be in these higher paying roles, which states a lot about this gender pay gap and what this opportunity gap looks like. Moving forward with the racial pay gap. So according to the National Conference of State Legislatures articles, the gender pay gap can be compounded for individuals with other intersecting identities such as race and class. According to the data from 2020, among women who hold full-time year-round jobs in the U.S., Black women are typically paid 63 cents, Native American women 60 cents, and Latinas 55 cents, and Asian American women 87 cents for every dollar paid to a white male working in a similar position. Additionally, Black and Hispanic women are more likely to work in lower paying service industry jobs, such as food service, domestic work, and healthcare assistance. So it's really important to notice that racial pay gap as well, in addition to just the gender pay gap. And you can see through the charts what that again looks like. Because there is a lot of data here, we want you to be able to play around with that data. So I'm going to send in the chat as well a link for you to continue to explore this information on your own. So I'm going to send that in the chat. I'm also going to click on it just for a moment so you all can see how you can use this tableau to learn more about earnings and earning ratios by sex, race, and occupation group. So as you see right now, we have total selected occupation groups on the left-hand side. You can see the annual earnings, and then the brown or the black is selected as men, the orange is women. So what you can do is you can go in and see the total occupations, but if you have a particular industry you're interested in learning more about, you can click on service and see what those annual earning differences are between genders. The other one over here is looking specifically at men's and women's ratio with race in mind. So you can click on compared with men of the same race to see what that earning ratio is according to what race you may or may not be interested in. You also then can look at compared to white or not Hispanic men to see what that differences are going to look like too. A great little display of data that you can play around with and really learn more about resources related to your interests. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into this career choice argument. I'm sure many of you have heard this myth in the past that women just happen to choose jobs that pay less. The following slides are going to highlight why the career choice argument, or saying that women choose jobs that pay less, does not explain the gender pay gap. So the first myth that's listed here is boys are better at math and science. In one study, teachers were asked about a boy and a girl who performed equally well on math tests and whom the teacher rated as equal on behavior and engagement. When asked mathematically about their abilities, the teacher was more likely to rate the boy as more mathematically able than the girl. But with that being said, to debunk this aspect of the myth, girls are steered away from certain subjects as early as childhood because of some of these misconceptions that teachers might have. Let's look at another one. Another myth is that women choose lower paying jobs. Society tends to value women's work less, and therefore jobs dominated by women generally pay less than those dominated by men. Meaning that jobs dominated by women typically pay less. Let's go into the next myth. Women choose to have women choose to have children. Since women still do a majority of the childcare, women often choose career paths that have flexible schedules to accommodate school events, doctor visits, and staying at home with a sick child. There is no reason that women cannot have fulfilling careers and take care of children. So it's important to note that this might be true for some women, but women should not have to choose between having children and having a career. That's something that they should be able to do at the same time. Other countries offer solutions for this to happen. In Finland, for example, 92% of companies offer flexible schedules. And in Norway, mandatory maternity and paternity leaves help to reduce this stigma of taking away time from work. So it's important to note that you shouldn't have to choose between being a mother and going through the process of having a career. And this is something that, again, can debunk this career choice argument. Awesome. Moving into the next one, thinking about this career choice argument again. Another myth that we are debunking here today is women don't enter certain high-paying professions dominated by men. It's not because women are not capable of working in those fields, but it is more likely that women avoid certain professions where there are few female roles and where they are where they are likely to be sexually harassed, microaggressed, or experience bias and discrimination. Women avoid certain professions because of that. In fact, according to the Pew Research Center, conducted from July to August in 2017, roughly 2/3 of working women report experiencing gender discrimination at work. And that is only what the report shared, meaning that not everybody might have even reported these in case of their comfort level with their workplace. But if you look at that, 4 in 10 working women said that they experienced gender discrimination at work. And there's all sorts of experiences listed within this slide. It might be that they earned less than a woman or man doing their same job, experience repeated small slights at work. They've been passed over for most important assignments. They've been denied promotion, a promotion, or even been turned down for a job offer as well. So it's really important to notice that these women are experiencing gender discrimination at work. And this is another reason that they avoid these certain types of fields or professions. One last myth that I like to share with you all to think about this field. One is that men make more than women, even in female-dominated jobs. What I like to reframe this as, if the career choice argument was true, men and women would receive equal pay in female-dominated jobs. Unfortunately, that is not the case. There is no occupational category where women earn more than men. According to the 2017 American Community Survey conducted by the Census, there is no occupational category where women make more money than men. So that career choice argument can be debunked in a lot of different ways, but I think this is one of the greatest ones that helps to emphasize that. So moving forward, why don't women ask for these sorts of opportunities? Why are we hesitant to share some of these actions? We talked about what the gender pay gap is and how various impacts on gender pay gap can occur. So let's go through it a little bit more and why it still exists. As noted in Harvard Business Review of How Do I Close the Gender Pay Gap, an article that was created in 2021, typical leadership characteristics that people are known for are authoritativeness, decisiveness, and directiveness. And when you think about these skills, typically, these are what we define as, or are typically coded as masculine skills. And as the article says, this means that women who demonstrate them appear to be violating gender expectations and are often characterized as difficult to work with or temperamental. However, when women think or women act in accordance to what the traditional gender norms might be. So this might be exhibiting warmth or communal orientation, that harmonious kind of environment. They're often seen as less capable and effective. Many of the executives that the Harvard article surveyed share that colleagues' perceptions can make or break a woman's career. As one of them put it, I did not understand how much likability was going to be this big, unqualified thing that matters so much more than performance in some cases. For women, it kills you if you're not likable. So because of some of these gender coded skills or coded characteristics, this is part of the reason that women tend to hesitate to ask. Continuing forward with that, though, not only is there a pay disparity at the onset of careers, the lost earnings over a 40-year career is compounded. So let's use an example from pay scale over here on the presentation. An average woman starts working around 22 and retires around 62, thus a 40-year career. Assuming the gender pay gap pay gap doesn't change, and the employers offer a 3% base pay increase each year, let's talk about what that lifetime earnings would be over a 40-year career. So what you can see with those lifetime earnings is that you can see the average amount of money earned by women throughout their careers is $850,000 less than of what a man would earn. When we control for the women's pay gap, it's 80,000 less. In other words, women with the same job title and qualifications as a man, making a median annual salary of $61,000 in 2020, would need to work another year longer to earn the same amount as a man, according to the scenario from Pay Scale. Quite a difference. With that being in mind, let's talk about how do I combat the issue of the gender pay gap through negotiation. So once you get a job offer, a super exciting moment, an opportunity for you to bring in some of these skills, but now what do? Negotiation can start with that new job offer, and we know the application process can be daunting and take a lot of time and effort. Once you get that job offer, let's take some time to celebrate that, because that is important to celebrate our wins. But also know that once the job offer is given, your work isn't done yet. When you receive the job offer, remember a couple different things. One, never accept a job offer immediately. Really make some time, take some time to consider what's in front of you. A verbal acceptance is still an acceptance. So even taking a moment to say, thank you so much, I'd love to take a moment to think about this, is a great way for you to have that time to reflect and not accept it immediately. It's also important to get the offer in writing. As much as it's great to hear the verbal offer given to you, they might say things that you might get in that verbal offer that aren't in the written offer. Making sure that you have the offer in writing is going to be really important in order to demonstrate not only you have the offer, but what the offer entails. Last but not least, don't be afraid to ask questions. If there's information in the offer that was not a part of what you thought the original job description asked for, if there are parts of this job offer related to when you're supposed to start, or when you're related to organization people that you might be supervising, ask those questions ahead of time. Especially many of you are probably in a career path right now that you're learning about what you like and don't like in those fields. Feel free to ask those questions as you're starting to go through this process on your own. Moving forward, let's talk about what you can negotiate. Some of the ones on this presentation might feel very obvious, but some might be things you've never thought about before. It can be helpful to understand what can even be negotiated as you look for that job offer. So here's just a sampling of things to consider to negotiate as you evaluate an offer. Something as simple as a start date. If you need that start date to be pushed forward or moved back, that is something that you can talk about when that start date would be. A sign-on bonus. This is becoming more and more common in the field that we see now in careers, of having some sort of extra bonus for signing within a particular time of that job offer being presented. That sign-on bonus might be something that you can negotiate. With that as well, a relocation bonus. If you are moving across the country for this job and you need extra funding to do that move, that's something that you could negotiate with the partner as you're trying to figure out this job offer. Job assignment or location, looking at where they might have branch offices or where locations might be. Also looking at the type of job that you're moving. If you're moving within the company or moving laterally into positions, you might be able to negotiate a different location that you're at, or different kind of responsibilities that you haven't had within your role. Professional development funding, continuing education, tuition reimbursements, all great things. That is when we want to continue to grow in our fields and continue to have this opportunity to really learn more. And so being able to negotiate professional development funding into your offer might be something that allows you to continue to grow in your field. Base salary, as simple as it might sound, your base salary is something that could absolutely help you in your field and help you learn more about your role, but also make more money to provide for yourself or your family. Salary progression of, is there a guaranteed salary growth or a merit that you'll have every year that you're working there? Looking at your paid time off, whether that is your vacation time, your sick time, looking at opportunities to maybe get an extra day or two in your negotiation process. Looking at flexible work hours, is there opportunities for you to be remote? If you need to go take an appointment, can you go and do that and have that flexibility in your schedule? Talking about what that flexibility might look like can be part of that negotiation process. Last but not least, stipends for parking. If the company's going to pay for your cell phone, if you have a home office, are they willing to provide you funding for you to be able to support these different needs that you're required to have because of this position, but are also things that might be directly coming out of your pocket as well. There's lots of things that you can think about as you're negotiating that offer. So walking through what that process looked like can be important. So how do I negotiate? One of the most important things is that preparation process that you would be doing in negotiation. So I think something like a value statement can be really important in that negotiation and in that prep. Using value statements in your negotiation can help you highlight why you deserve a higher salary. So think about how you would describe yourself. What are the abilities that speak to you? What are the things that you pride yourself in? And what kind of accomplishments have you had that relate to this position? If you think about it, you could say something on the lines of, I accomplished this item or I accomplished this project using these various skills, which has benefited the company, the project that you're working on, your team, and then share that result that you have. So you can use those value statements to start. You can also use research to help you negotiate as well. So when you're trying to search for comparable job titles, you know what to use or what you should be asking for. You can use websites like Glassdoor, PayScale, or even salary.com to see what people in your field are typically making as they enter or as they transition. Once you think about your values and you think about the research, you can then move into that target salary. Understanding your market value of who you are and what this position says, you can establish that target salary and use the target salary as the bottom number in the range that you're providing. So that way you can set yourself as a walk away point as well. What I mean by that is that your target salary will be on more of a bell curve, with the bottom left tail of your bell curve being your walk away number. If they negotiate to this and they still aren't giving me the number that I'm looking at, that's the number that I'm saying I'm walking away from this opportunity. At the top of the bell curve, you think about your target salary, what are you hoping to earn? And at the bottom right is going to be more that ideal salary. What is something that would be something I'm willing to take and would be most ideal in my circumstances? So how do I negotiate that raise or promotion? It's important to identify the accomplishments that justify your request. So return back to that value statement and think about, what projects have you completed and succeeded in? What praise or acknowledgement have you received from internal or external partners? And has it been via email, via phone? Is there things that you can provide as proof of that praise or acknowledgement? What new skills, knowledge, certifications, or educations have you been able to complete? And what demonstrates your ability to excel within this role? Or what demonstrates your success and how you've been able to do that? Identifying those accomplishments are going to be really essential in this process. The other aspect too is timing. During the evaluation season, thinking about, this is a great time as they are evaluating my work to maybe consider, can I negotiate a raise or any kind of promotion? If you have a following significant accomplishment or a deadline that you were able to succeed and fulfill, this is absolutely a great reason that you can use, or something that you can use in your benefit, to negotiate that raise or promotion. Also too, when a role is available in a higher position, you can negotiate your abilities and your skills to try to ask for that promotion. With that being said, it also takes a lot of practice to build your confidence. So using alumni or alumni on Lehigh Connects and really finding ways that you can connect with individuals who have maybe gone through this process and learn about their tips or tricks of how they've been able to negotiate. Even having somebody that you feel comfortable in the process doing and having that back and forth conversation of, how do I build confidence? And how do I practice this negotiation? Seeing if somebody's willing to be that practice partner for you to give you tips and tricks or even advice on how to be more confident in negotiating this process. Last but not least, I think it's really important to think about how am I supporting others in this process. Now that you're equipped with knowledge about the gender pay gap and the racial pay gap, cultural expectations, so why women don't ask, and how to navigate a job, a promotion, or a raise, we hope you feel more informed as you continue in your career. Supporting others is a key way for us all to combat the gender pay gap. One place that you can start with this is Lehigh Connects, our mentoring platform where you're able to connect with fellow alumni and current students. Making your profiles on Lehigh Connects, you can share your experiences that way. You can also respond to messages and meeting requests to talk with students about career exploration and career preparation. And these might include some of the tips that you learned today or throughout your own experiences on how to negotiate and how to find that market value. Research does show that the gender pay gap transparency is how we close the gender pay gap. So we also know that pay transparency increases retention. So this should be something that your companies and organizations are talking about and are sharing these sort of things. These states and even cities that are moving towards pay transparency as a policy or a law is really important. So look for those kind of opportunities. For example, New York City just passed a law requiring companies to post salary ranges for job ads, promotions, and transfer opportunities. That's one way we can ensure the gender pay gap is addressed. And finally, we also need to work together to build a culture of fair wages as well. As a reminder, this presentation was also developed with partnerships and colleagues across campuses, particularly the Center of Gender Equity. So we made sure that this information was data-driven. If anybody wants to explore resources on their own, we will make sure to share this presentation with you, and there's additional resources as well utilize on our YouTube page to find more information about this. I hope this presentation was insightful about what the gender pay gap was, how you can negotiate that gender pay gap, what is negotiable, and how you can support others in that process. We want to make sure we can lead the change for inequities and practices and policies. And even by attending this presentation, hopefully you're learning some of those tips and tricks that will allow you to be successful. Thank you all for coming to this presentation. As we shared before, and we can put that link back in there, any questions that you have or any further discussion that you want to have related to this presentation, you can go and direct any of your questions to the Lehigh Connects Women's Professional Alliance group as well. I see a question in the chat. Yes, please do feel free to include questions. Do we have any resources at Lehigh for women returning to work after long work gaps? That's a great question. Most of our resources that we provide for our students or grads under 2 years. We do have articles on our Higher Lehigh blog that might talk a little bit about this, but really what I would recommend for you looking at resources is to talk to people that you might know, or even individuals on Lehigh Connects that have those gender pay gap, or I'm sorry, that have those work gaps in their timelines, and talk about to them, the people who have done it themselves, of what that process looks like. I think that networking opportunity, not only for you to get your name back out there, but also that opportunity to connect with individuals who have experienced that and learn from their process, might be really insightful. Awesome. I also have in here too, just want to note that another way the gender pay gap impacts parents is lost prime earning years if you leave the workforce when it comes to calculating Social Security or the 401k match or other retirement funds. It's a great point that you shared, Megan. Thank you so much for that. Yes, absolutely. So somebody just asked about the bell curve again. So let me share that info again related to the bell curve. So when you think about the bell curve of your target salary, of what are you trying to earn, what you can do first is thinking about the bell curve of your bottom left being that point that you would want to walk away of, that you have that range salary-wise. If you are offered a salary, let's say that salary, you're looking for something, your target salary, maybe it's in like 65,000. If the company would come back to you and say, we can only provide you 50,000, that might be your point that you're walking away at. This is too low of a salary. There's not enough benefits here that's going to allow me to be successful. The top of that curve is going to be that target salary. When you've done that research and you figured out what your values are, what are you hoping to gain? What is that target that you're looking at? That's the top of your bell curve, what you're hoping to reach. The bottom right being your ideal salary. So if you have the opportunity to have something that's a little more out of reach, but maybe would even sell you more, that's going to be what that bottom is. So really that target salary, the top of your bell curve, is from understanding your values, the work that you've done, the way you can describe your accomplishments. And then the research is going to be also beneficial in creating that target salary. So using both of those together makes your target salary. That's what you're hoping to obtain. Hopefully that helps to explain the bell curve a little better. Some position titles have a wide range of salaries. How do you zero in a target for a similar level of experience? Oh, good. That answered the previous question. When you're trying to think of salaries or position titles that have that wider range of salary, thinking about looking at your experiences of what that wider range of salary might be. I think what you could do in this situation is thinking about where does your experience come into play? If you have like 5+ years in that industry, maybe you're leaning on that higher end of the salary. Or maybe you're trying to think about what kind of similar experience and how are those transferable skills allowing you to be successful in this new role or this new industries. Trying to match again your values and the work that you've brought to the table previously and where that might fall in the pay scale can hopefully help you identify what's going to zero in on that target range for yourself. How do I start a conversation with management about salary transparency in an engineering firm? I think something that can be really helpful in doing that is being open about what your position is within that salary and finding those people who are either allies or advocates for yourself and having those conversations with them to be like, I'd really like to open up conversation about what that what my pay range looks like. And if you don't mind sharing yours, I'd love to talk about where are those discrepancies in there. It's something that my office has started to do and having some of those conversations. And sometimes it's looking at who are you most comfortable having those conversations with before you get to that larger scale of having everybody having that pay transparency. This might even be when you say having a conversation with management about them. It might be having a group of people who's coming to management together so you feel more empowered in numbers. It might be if you have a great relationship with your supervisor, sharing that something that I've noticed that if we want to provide more opportunities to people in underrepresented categories is having more conversations about what salary is and what that means for our company and the positions that we're providing. So maybe having some of those conversations that way with management might make the conversation run more smoothly. These are all great questions. And I don't see any other questions popping up in the chat now. So I want to thank you all again for your great questions. If you have additional questions that come up after this presentation, please feel free to answer those questions or feel free to chat those questions into the People Grove Women's Alliance group. All right. I see one more question that's popped up. Having worked at Bell Labs for 8 years, I learned that the path to salary growth requires the following: access to executive leadership, boundaries, support, and resources. I think that's a great point that you brought up, Sandra. Really making sure that you're utilizing the resources, the support mechanisms, having those people that you feel like you can talk to are all great ways to support you in that process. Alrighty. I want to thank you all again for coming to this presentation. I hope you continue to have conversations related to the gender pay gap. And thank you so much for this opportunity to present with you all.